Right, I think on the last video I promised you a video on deeds. So deeds are now banned in Brian McManus Real Estate. We will not deal with anybody using a deed. If you don't have 10% deposit, if you don't have bank finance, we are not interested. The only reason, if we're overridden by the vendor's solicitor, and that I would be prepared to walk away from the transaction and have nothing to do with it. So deeds. Now this is, I'm going to round these figures up. We've just had one. It's the biggest con. That might cause a bit of a stir, and it's an opinion, alleged con that I've ever seen. So I'm going to change the figures slightly, marginally, so they're not the same. So let's say, for instance, a property sold for $400,000, say 10 years ago. And of course this is hotels, motels, caravan parks, businesses with that. So it's sold for $400,000 10 years ago. Nothing's been spent on it. There may have been some capital gain in there, and we take it to auction today. So 10 years later we take it to, oh, not today, let's say a year or two ago, take it to auction, and all the inquiry is around 400, 450. So they're all saying there was nothing cash unconditional at 450, so cash unconditional about 400. They were saying it's tied, didn't have some of the infrastructure in place, business wasn't trading really, it was trading as a cash business, so all those sorts of things. So that's where the market was, okay, for normal market. Normal people like me and you put money down, go to the bank and say, will you lend me some money to buy this business or property? And usually you have some books and stuff. So that's a normal market, everybody on board. Well, instead of paying market value like that, say 400, 450, they might pay, are you sitting down? Let's say they pay 1.5 million. Now this is in the figures. So can you see it's a million, 1.1 million over the market. So they pay $1.5 million. Now, on these other deals, the normal people like you and me would pay a 10% deposit, so $40,000 deposit. Everyone understands that, right? But with the deed, they pay $1,000. And although they're asked to pay 10%, which would be $150,000, they never do. So they never actually front up with any money. So that's the first little inkling that something's awry. I put phone calls into them. I don't know if the solicitor did, because once I put the sale summary in, the solicitor takes over, I step away. Anyway, they don't pay a deposit. But they go away and they get their finance on 1.5 million. Yes. To this point, it's just a purchase price that's odd until you start paying the percentages. So low doc loans, what's the percentage you can get on a low doc loan in the private sector, not trading banks? So with the deed, first of all, let's say it's 1 the deed will state, now the deed, I believe, should be in the body of the contract, should be on the front page of the contract, so any lending institution understands there's a payback. And they call it the vendor giving money to the purchaser. So the buyback could be $500,000. So that purchase price in the deed, the vendor and the buyer agree that the vendor will give $500,000 back to the purchaser. So now they're paying $1 million. Remember, it's only worth $400,000. So they agree to pay the vendor $500,000 now on settlement. No, you sit down. $500,000 now, so it would be $400,000 really, but let's call it $500,000. So $500,000 now, and then $500,000 in 12 months' time, and $500,000 is given back to the buyer. Technically, money doesn't change hands. Back to the buyer. Okay, it's getting a bit murky now, isn't it? And when you're inside this deal, as an agent, as a vendor, it gets very confusing. And this is not how I understood deeds from long ago. Deeds were still up front. Anyway, remember, he's only paid $1,000 deposit. So why? And it took me months to work out, why would you offer 1.5 when it's only worth 500? Why? Didn't bother with the building inspection. Why? Valuer didn't come through before offer. Why? So all those sorts of things start adding up. But you keep going, or the solicitors keep going. So then it dawned on me, and I got a kick up the bum from a solicitor. It is after 5 o'clock, by the way. Sun's over the yard arm, and yes, it's my birthday tomorrow, so we're having a beer today. So why would you pay 1.5 million? And then it comes back to, how much money do you borrow? So you take your contract to an institution. If you don't disclose there's a deed, and you go for a low doc loan, how much money do you think you could borrow on 1.5? So 50% is 750. 60%, about 800. So let's say you borrow $800,000, and the bank or institution, because it's a low doc loan, they think you're paying 1.5. You're not. You're paying $500,000. You're actually paying $1 million. So you borrow $800,000, you only pay $500,000 to the vendor. Oh, there's something I almost missed. So on settlement you pay $500,000. There's $300,000 that you've borrowed there. There's $300,000 that you can use for whatever you want. So did you follow that? So, and this took me months, and I'm sorry, but it did. That there's $300,000 sitting here, 1.5 million purchase price. You only had to pay 500 to the vendor, and the magical thing about the deed is that you get the title on settlement. So the vendor has an unsecured debt of 500,000. What do you think of that? And the bloody thing's only worth 500. So in 12 months' time, when that 500,000 is due, do you think the person that got that extra 300,000 still has that 300,000 to pay another 200,000 on top? And remember, the thing's been locked up, hasn't traded, hasn't earned a dime. None of that money's been spent on the asset it's been borrowed against. So, have a look. Purchase price, 1.5 million. Value, 5. This is the example, remember, it's not the actual property. Lost my train of thought. How do we go? Yeah, so purchase price, 1.5, $1,000 deposit. Never paid the actual deposit of 150,000, so no money up front. Gets a finance on 1.5, gets a low doc loan, doesn't have to show any figures, just says hotel. Borrows 800, could even borrow more if you go to the right institution. That could be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And you're neither, remember, hasn't traded, not a cent spent on it, still empty. So no chattels, nothing, long grass, no carpet, half the carpet's been ripped up. It goes on. Anyway, so the long and the short of it is, Brian McManus Real Estate will not be dealing with deeds. On behalf of the vendor, on behalf of Brian McManus Real Estate, on behalf of stress and chaos. The chaos that this deal creates over the 12 months is mind-blowing, because it's not normal. And as I said briefly, a solicitor gave me a kick up the backside and said I didn't go dig deep enough on the buyer, and I thought I did the Google thing, Googled them, blah 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 blah, believed a lot of stuff that wasn't true. Long and short is, don't deal in deeds, ever. There's always another buyer, and there was. In actual fact, didn't settle first time, found another buyer to pay very good money, and would have, but this buyer wasn't showing the door. Contract wasn't terminated. So anyway, that's the way it is. Nothing to do with me. That's all the legal side. Don't really understand it. Don't want to. So the long and short of, don't deal in deeds as a vendor ever. Don't accept them. Stay with willing buyer, willing seller concept, and you'll be good. And lesson that Brian McManus Real Estate has learned: stay away from the chaos. Somebody turns up in a bloody Ferrari or Maserati. Don't. Well, you know, I think I'm saying it all. Anyway, it's getting dark, so we're going inside now, and going to watch some cycling tonight. Tour de France. Bring in the 5th of July birthday, and I'd have to say thanks very much to my army mates reminding me how old I am. And Gary, you are a year older than me until midnight, so stuff that. Thanks very much.